So right now I'm in Yerushalayim, near Kodesh, which is the holiest city in the world. But I spend my days in a place called near Ramla, which in my opinion, after Har Bayis and the Kotel, is the second holiest place in the world. And that is because that is where over 1,000 Jewish men, women, children, kids who were murdered al Kiddush Hashem are brought. And it is our job. There's hundreds of us working around the clock to try to identify all the victims of this heinous attack. And we take it with a lot of responsibility, and we take it with, the severity of it. On the one hand, realizing that we're dealing with Gedosha Elyon. The Gemara says in Baba Basra that someone who dies al Kiddush Hashem ain't kol ber yom edes b'mechitzasam. No one can stand, in their realm. So think of the greatest Rav who didn't die al Kiddush Hashem. So they're in a special place that's close to heaven. And on the same time, we realize that every second that we work quicker, that means the family is going to know a second quicker. So we know that responsibility and how important that is to relay the information that we get as quickly as possible, to get it through all the channels so like that the family can know. Because right now they don't know anything. It's either their son, daughter, father, brother was murdered, is taken hostage in Gaza, Chas v'Shalom, or anything else. So we realize that every second that we're there, we're saving the anguish of Jews. And I was standing next to someone, and he told me that as he was walking into the base, and I'm sorry if I'm going to break down in the middle, a mother grabbed him by his feet and said, and took out her phone and said, "Have you seen my daughter? Have you seen my daughter?" And she showed him a picture. And obviously we're not allowed to say until it goes through all the different systems. Not that, we look that closely anyways. We just try to get the information, and then all the relevant, I guess, departments take care of it. But that's what he was sharing with me. And that's just one. That's one mother waiting for her daughter. And there's 1,000, more than 1,000. So that's what I do on a daily basis.
This line of work is not something that anyone could be prepared for. What you're dealing with right now. How is this? How can you, or how are you, going there during the day and doing that avodah, and then you come home at night to the family? How do you comprehend all this? How do you make sense of this? Where in your mind do you put it to be functioning?
So when we're working, when we're there, our top priority is, like I said, to get it done as quickly as possible, to really try to identify the victims and move. So we're coming with a sense of mission, with a sense of power. We know that Am Yisrael is behind us. We know that there are soldiers on the front line who will fight better, knowing that their brothers and sisters are taken care of at home. There's the war now in Israel is on two fronts. There's one, the physical war, and that is, in the south and in the north, the soldiers fighting, and Hashem should protect them and protect all of Am Yisrael. And then there's the second war, and that is to identify all these victims of terror, and try to get them buried as quickly as possible and lift the morale of Am Yisrael. The morale of Am Yisrael has been severely damaged, probably the most since the Holocaust, where we like it's a terrible Chilul Hashem. I guess when so many Jews die.
Wow. I want to invite you to elaborate on something that's been coming up here in Chutz La'aretz quite a bit. And when I heard Nachi's question, I'm reminded of it. You're on the front lines encountering what can only be described as senseless. What's going on is senseless. And people are asking, how do we make sense of this? And how do we reconcile this with our emunah? And the the mashal that is so often given for, when we encounter the Midas Hadin of the Eibishter is when a child's hand is being extended into a fire and the parent slaps away the hand from the fire. When you zero in and freeze frame that administration of the slap, it appears on the surface as din. But of course, if a person is able to expand the view and see that the parent is sparing the child of that pain of having the child's hand end up in the fire, it becomes clear what's revealed is the chesed and the ava and the love of the parent and concern for the child that is rooted underneath that din of slapping the hand away from the fire. And that's the mashal that's given for how when we see Midas Hadin, we believe and we know and we're confident that any din from the Eibishter is rooted in chesed, rooted in ava. But what's missing in that mashal is just the information, right? The expanded view of that fire. And if only a person would expand their view and see what the parent is trying to spare the child from, when you add that information into the equation, it clicks. The ava, the love falls into place. But when this type of evil, this type of just sinister atrocity is occurring, what I'm seeing here in Chutz La'aretz is that people are grappling with, well, what possible expanded view, what possible information are we missing to understand this? And this craving to reconcile it with the infinite chesed of the Eibishter. And what was so helpful to me, and I want to invite you to elaborate on this if I may, and pardon my lengthy question, is that if a person on the surface is being mative with another and is doing chesed, okay? So, for example, a parent is giving a lollipop to a child in their backyard, and they're just giving a lollipop. So on the surface, that looks like chesed. That looks like ava. And to anyone that is able to observe that and see that, it indeed looks like chesed. But to the flower and to the plant that is in the backyard, that plant, that flower is not able to perceive the love and the kindness. It's a plant. It's limited in its capacities. It's a tzemeach. It doesn't have the faculties of being able to understand what is chesed, what is love. And similarly, there is some hanhaga from Hashem that is such that us human beings, we are limited in our capacity. And we are like a plant encountering something that is just unable to comprehend it. And the avodah that everyone is saying is, oh, it's not our avodah to try to figure it out, and it's not our avodah to reconcile it and to make sense out of it. It's not only that it's not our avodah, but we have no faculties, we have no capacity to understand this type of anhaga. And therefore, it's not our avodah. And you're so uniquely positioned in the thick of what is happening. And I'm wondering how you, on a daily basis, relate to this avodah of just accepting that as human beings in the human condition, we're limited in our ability to process this.
So it's an excellent question. It's an excellent mashal, and it's also an excellent solution. I think that the topic of emunah and bitachon is a very personal one, and people will relate to what you say, and that's how they're able to cope with it. There are other people who will say what you mentioned before, and that's we just don't ask questions, and that's how we move on. And then I think every single person needs to find his mahalach. And how he comes out strong with his emunah and bitachon, and he should also acknowledge that everyone is different, that every person is different. What you said resonates with me personally. What also resonates with me personally is, we're looking right now. We're in, like you said, we're in the thick of things. We're still shell shocked as a nation of what's going on over here. But if we zoom out on history, so the Jewish nation has, we have our ups and downs and our dips, but ultimately we're going up and we're getting closer towards the Geula. Like that is clear. That is not something that, it's obvious. And that gives me a lot of chizuk. So, when the Holocaust happened, what did Jews think? I'm sure you probably all met Holocaust survivors, and each one had their own ways of coping with it. I'm not chas v'shalom comparing this to the Holocaust on many levels, but every generation, everyone is saying this is the worst day, that our nation has had since the Holocaust. But everyone has their own way of dealing with it. And I think overall, what gives me strength to continue, and the way I'm able to, block it off, is because I try to focus in on the chesed of Am Yisrael. So we have 12-hour shifts. We basically go from 6 to 6. And what I see is the guys come, and we come with fire and with a bread and a sense of mission that we're here to help. We're not going to be like these, I don't even want to call them animals, because I think we're disrespecting animals when I'm calling Hamas animals. Animals have, they eat when they're hungry. This is they hunt when they're hungry. This is below animals. So what we do is what I do is I try to focus on the good, and I try to focus in on how Am Yisrael is the extreme opposite of what Hamas is. Hamas kills men, women, children, like without, and us, like when we deal with these kedoshim, when we deal with kedosha, every aspect of halacha is brought into it. We make sure to treat them with the right kavod that they deserve, according to the halacha, according to knowing that they're kedosha elyon. If a drop of blood comes out, we make sure to clean it, and it gets buried with it. You don't step over the mason. When you put it down, you put them slowly. And you ask for mechila. Like today, there was, every day, I don't want to get so much into the details, or we won't have such a long interview. But basically, it's at the end of every day we stop, and we ask for mechila. We say parak of Tehillim, and we ask for mechila, and we say that whatever the way we dealt with you is just to speed up your kvura, because we know that according to halacha, when a person is buried, that's when there's shlimus to the neshama, to the body, and to Am Yisrael. And we ask for mechila, and we say kaddish, and when we're dealing with such a quantity of death, we have to stop. We stop a few times during the day just to say kaddish, just so like we don't get used to this. It's crazy, right? Like you go to a levaya, chamer kadisha, it's, you got 1, 2. This is like 1,000 in a day, where you're, working through, trying to identify, and you don't want to become that subhuman behemoth, worse, that Hamas is. And we stop, and, Am Yisrael, with our tradition, with our Masorah, with the Torah, has so many halachas that bring, like, if this is how we respect someone after that, kal v'chomer when they're alive, right? For sure, when they're alive, we should, like the Ahavas Yisrael that's on the base right now. It's the craziest thing. There's Jews of all types on the base, there's religious, not religious, and the love and the outpouring is just, it's wild. And also in America, and we feel the love coming from America. And it's very important, and what's happening, and not just in America, and all around the world. I'm sure you have listeners all around the world. That love and that outpouring is incredible, and it gives us strength. There's a wall in our unit that is filled with pictures that kids drew, saying, you should be matzliach, and at Am Yisrael chai. And whenever someone gets down, they'll go out and they'll look at that wall and they'll say, Am Yisrael is chai. Am Yisrael is going to continue. Like, Hamas is stupid. Like, have you not learned from all of history? We're not going anywhere, right? Everyone tried. Everyone tried to get us. Every single one tried to get us. We're not going, and we will be here forever. So just stop trying.
I want to ask you, obviously there's so much negative that's going on. You don't have to look far to see images and videos, and many of which people shouldn't see because it can't be unseen. Besides for the people that need to see it, someone like you who's doing what you're doing. Has there been, but all, for all the negative that's happened, there's been also a tremendous amount of positivity. Like you mentioned, the Ahavas Yisrael that's being felt around the world. it's palpable. The things that are happening. I just mentioned to Momo prior to going live that I have a family member that's in the plaza right now, and the plaza filled up with over 100 families from the south. And your brother, your Rabbi ETL, was there, and someone from America paid for 160 families to stay there for Shabbos. And not only that, there's food and baby formula and diapers and entertainment and musicians, and everyone is just giving. It's unbelievable. And I just want to ask you, in your time there so far, is there a specific story, an act of kindness or positivity or hashgacha that stood out to you that you want to say?
Nothing that jumps out. Nothing that jumps out. Unfortunately, we deal with, not the happy part of this war. But like you're saying, the outpouring and the love and the achdus of Am Yisrael is incredible. Like you said, in the Plaza Hotel, and it's everywhere. We have. I told the members of my platoon, I said, I'm gonna gain weight. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna gain weight. Like usually you go to the army, you get into shape. It's like here, it's like we're getting candies and food, and it's heartwarming. It's really, Am Yisrael is here with us. Sort of with Harlap, he says, Am Yisrael is one entity. It says Ki Adam Hu Nefesh. And he says, when blood of a Jew is spilled in one area, we feel it all over the world. We're all one unit. And just like when you cut your hand, you feel it. So when blood is shed in one area, the entire nation feels it. And that is right now what has happened. It's just the entire nation feels it.
It's amazing. I love how you describe the achdus and the avos Yisrael that exists on the base. My wife shared with me that there was someone who unfortunately perished at the music festival and was a new Olet to Eretz Yisrael. And the family that was there was concerned.
Wasn't perished. He was murdered at the music festival.
She was murdered. Absolutely. I stand corrected. I apologize. And her family was newly there in Eretz Yisrael, and her mother was concerned that there wouldn't be a minyan at the levaya, and was asking around if they can gather 10 men to come to the levaya. And sure enough, thousands and thousands of Jews showed up for what would otherwise be a meis mitzvah. And it's unbelievable how activated this Am Yisrael Chai element is.
Yeah, I saw that story also, and it's everything. It's on the way back from the base yesterday. I got a text message that there's a family who's sitting Shiva who lost their son in a hotel. They're leaving tomorrow, which is today. If anyone can come, they're here for a few hours. So on the way, I stopped, and you go into the room and you think no one will be there, and there are 50 people there, and you sit down and you join all of Am Yisrael, and you don't know the person and you never met them before, and you just say, I'm here. You should know your tragedy is not your personal tragedy. This is the tragedy of Am Yisrael. You didn't lose a son. Am Yisrael lost the son. You didn't lose a brother. Am Yisrael lost the brother, and we feel that. And when you tell that to the families, they understand that. Like the sense, like you're describing now, the sense of unity is there's no more right and left. There's no more religious and non-religious. It's Am Yisrael. And the first batch of the Mesim, of those who were murdered, that came in was actually from this festival that you mentioned. And I think they all had like the festival tax. And I don't think any of them were religious. But in our eyes, they're a Kadosh Elyon. This is Kodesh Kodashim. This is someone who died because he's a Jew. And we treat them with the utmost respect. And we ask them Mechila, just like we would ask any Kadosh. Yeah. In dealing with them.
Just, for context for our listeners, this is not your day job on a non-war time. This is something that, you're stepping up to service to do.
Right. This is like one of these things where you go to the army and you're like, this is never going to happen. And we're like, no, I'm just doing the nice thing. I'll come, I'll join. Like, this is not a reality that will ever happen. And even if there are like, Chas v'shalom, there's an attack and there's 50 people that are killed. So like the army has enough people, they'll deal with it. Like they're not going to call out me as a reservist. And then lo and behold, you're there round the clock, seeing the most horrific things that you can imagine or not imagine, hopefully. And it's crazy. It's
on a personal level, at the end of a day, at the end of a 12-hour shift, how do you decompress? Like, what do you do with all that you've dealt with? You've seen?
We decompress knowing that we are doing a mitzvah. We decompress knowing that we're giving Am Yisrael its strength to continue, and we decompress knowing that today we were able to identify someone, and that family knows whether their daughter is held captive in Gaza, and who knows what, or she's going to be buried, which is also terrible. But it's at least it gives them that closure, and it gives Am Yisrael that closure. So that's what gives us the strength and the strength of Am Yisrael. Am Yisrael is behind us. We feel it. We feel it every second. And we have Rabbanim that call and come in and try to give us, because like we work as, like we try not to take breaks, but sometimes there are times where we break. Sometimes you need to wait for the data that we collected to actually, come back and say, okay, this person is, so-and-so. And then you're able to.
Well, we thank you for stepping up to service and doing something that, I don't know. It's not fun. It's not something anybody would want to do, but you're doing the avodah. You're doing work, holy work.
Ashrecha. We're reminded here in the States and Chutz La'aretz, when some of our non-Jewish colleagues ask us, I heard what's going on. Do you have any family in Israel? And I love when they ask me that question, because the answer is, yeah, millions of my brothers and my sisters are in Israel. And it's hard for someone outside of the nation to really understand what that means. And of course, my mother's entire family is Israeli and has been living in Israel for decades. And I have immediate family, and I have my entire Jewish nation family in Israel. And every time we get that question, we're reminded of how this is one pulsating, beating heart, which is so alive. Am Yisrael.
Thank you so much, and we wish you all the best over there.
And thank you both for being, this incredible voice for Am Yisrael and really seeing the positive in everything. I think it's very important now to try to stay positive, try to move forward. And Am Yisrael, we might fall, but we're never broken. We're always able to get up. And B'ezrat Hashem, we'll see the Yeshua, the Karev Mamish.